The wine glass shattered against the marble floor 3 seconds before Maya's world exploded. She hadn't thrown it. Park, my son, had. Daniel's mother, the woman who'd spent 18 months systematically destroying Maya's spirit with a smile on her face, and the Bordeaux splashed across Maya's custom emerald dress like red paint, like evidence, like everything Maya had tried to leave behind when she fled Seoul 6 years ago. You dare show your face here, my son hissed in Korean, her perfectly maintained features twisting into something ugly. After what you stole from this family, after the lies you spread about my son. The entire Park family dining room went deadly silent. 20 faces turned toward Maya, aunts, uncles, cousins, hangers-on, all of them watching to see if the black woman who'd married into their precious bloodline would finally break the way they'd always wanted her to. Maya didn't move, didn't flinch. The wine dripped from her dress onto Italian marble that probably cost more than most people's cars, and she simply smiled. I didn't steal anything, Mrs. Park, Maya said in flawless Korean, her voice carrying across the room with the clarity of someone who'd spent 6 years preparing for this exact moment. But your son did, and tonight, everyone's going to know exactly what Daniel Park really is. That's when her 6-year-old son Kai, her beautiful, brave Afro-Korean baby who should have been safe in the guest room, came running into the dining room, his small face streaked with tears. Mommy, Kai cried, and 20 pairs of eyes went wide as they saw him for the first time, saw his soft curls that marked him as Maya's, saw his features that were unmistakably Park family, high cheekbones, the distinctive nose, those eyes that every Park carried like a genetic signature. Park Deokman, the 78-year-old patriarch seated at the head of the table, dropped his chopsticks. They clattered against bone china worth more than Maya's first apartment. Who is that child? Deokman's voice could have cut steel. That's my son, Maya said, pulling Kai against her side protectively, feeling the wine from her dress soak into his navy suit. Park Kai, your great-grandson, Daniel's nephew. She paused, let the words settle like bombs. Jason's son. The room erupted into chaos. Jason, my son's voice went shrill. Jason was exiled, we cut him off, he has nothing, he is nothing. He has everything. The new voice came from the doorway, deep and commanding, and Maya felt her entire body relax for the first time since entering this house of horrors. Jason Park stepped into the dining room like he owned it, which technically he should have. As the eldest Park son, the inheritance should have been his. But 6 years ago, he'd walked away from billions of won, from the family empire, from everything, because he'd refused to compromise his integrity the way they demanded. He was taller than Daniel, broader in the shoulders with the same sharp features but none of the cruelty. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost less than Daniel's shoes, but he wore it like armor. And when his dark eyes found Maya across the room, the softness there, the love, the partnership, the promise of protection, it made her remember why she'd survived. Hello, Abioji, Jason said to Deokman, using the respectful term for father that Daniel had never earned the right to use with such ease. It's been 6 years. We need to talk about what really happened, and about what Daniel did to my wife. Daniel shot to his feet so fast his chair crashed backward. Your wife, she was my wife. She's lying, she's always lying. Sit down, Daniel. Deokman's command cracked through the room like a whip. The old man's eyes were fixed on Kai, scanning every feature with the intensity of someone doing calculations in their head. Jason, you married your brother's ex-wife. I married the woman I loved, Jason corrected, walking to Maya's side and placing his hand on the small of her back, right over the wine stain. The woman your family abused, accused of crimes she didn't commit and paid off to disappear. The woman who was innocent of every single thing Daniel blamed her for. He looked directly at his younger brother. Want to tell them what you did, Daniel, or should I? Daniel's face had gone white. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar, Kai said, his small voice cutting through the tension. Everyone stared at the 6-year-old. Daddy says you hurt Mommy. Daddy says you made Grandma be mean to her every day. Daddy says you stole money and blamed Mommy for it. My son made a strangled sound. How dare you bring a child here to spread? He's not spreading lies, Maya interrupted, and she felt Jason's hand press against her back in support. He's spreading truth, something this family wouldn't recognize if it walked through the door wearing a name tag. She looked at Deokman. You invited me here tonight. You said you wanted to apologize for the way I was treated during my marriage to Daniel. You said you'd heard disturbing things and wanted to make amends. She smiled, sharp as a knife. So let's talk about amends. Let's talk about the 18 months I spent being called a gold digger by your family when I had my own career, my own money. Let's talk about being accused of stealing when your son was the thief. Let's talk about the NDA you made me sign, the insulting settlement you threw at me like I was a prostitute you were paying off instead of a wife you'd failed to protect. Maya, Daniel started. Don't, Jason's voice was quiet but lethal. Don't say her name, don't look at her, don't even breathe in her direction. You lost that right when you put your hands on her the first time. The room went absolutely silent. My son's face had drained of color. Hands on her, Daniel would never. He hit me, Maya said simply, and watched my son flinch like she'd been slapped. 3 times during our marriage, once so hard I had a black eye that I had to hide with makeup for 2 weeks. And when I told your husband, when I went to Park Diokman's office and showed him the bruises, you know what he said? She looked directly at the old man. He said I must have provoked it, that Korean men have tempers and American women don't understand how to be respectful wives. Diokman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Shame, maybe, or just irritation at being called out. That's not, I never. Daniel was sweating now, his expensive cologne mixing with the sour smell of panic. You did, Maya continued relentlessly. You hit me. You stole from your family's company and blamed me when the auditors started asking questions. You convinced your mother I was after the Park fortune when I'd signed a prenup that left me with nothing. And when I finally got the courage to leave, when I finally filed for divorce, you made sure I left career completely destroyed. No job recommendations, no references, my name attached to fraud I didn't commit. An NDA that said if I ever spoke about our marriage, I'd be sued into oblivion. That's because you were guilty. Daniel's composure was cracking, his voice rising. The money was missing, the company secrets were sold, mother's necklace was stolen. I have the necklace, Bibi said from the doorway. Every head swiveled. Park Bibi, Diokman's sister, the family's quiet accountant who everyone underestimated, stood in the entrance holding a small jewelry box and a manila folder thick with documents. Aunt Bibi, Daniel said, his voice strangled. What are you doing? What I should have done 6 years ago, Bibi said, walking into the room with the steady gait of someone who'd made up their mind and wouldn't be swayed. Telling the truth, she set the jewelry box on the table in front of my son. Your diamond necklace, the one that went missing 8 years ago, the one you accused Maya of stealing. She opened the box to reveal the glittering piece. Daniel sold it to a private collector in Busan. I tracked it down and bought it back 3 years ago. I've been waiting for the right moment to return it. My son stared at the necklace like it was a ghost. That's impossible, Daniel wouldn't. Daniel did. Bibi opened the manila folder. I have receipts, I have the original police report where Maya was named as a suspect. I have Daniel's text messages to the collector. I have bank transfers showing the money went into an offshore account in Daniel's name. She pulled out paper after paper, spreading them across the table like playing cards. I also have evidence of embezzlement, of corporate espionage. Of every single crime Daniel committed and blamed on Maya to cover his tracks. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya felt Jason's hand tighten on her back, felt Kai press against her leg, and she watched as Daniel's entire world began to collapse. Diokman picked up one of the documents with shaking hands, read it, set it down, picked up another. His face was the color of old paper. You stole from your own family, the old man said quietly. You beat your wife, you framed an innocent woman, you destroyed her reputation to hide your own crimes. Abioji, I can explain, Daniel's voice cracked. Explain what? Jason's voice was cold as ice. Explain how you're a coward who hid behind family reputation while torturing someone who couldn't fight back. Explain how you let Mother torture Maya every single day, criticizing her hair, her skin, her culture, her everything, because it made you feel powerful to watch her break. I never, my son started. You did, Maya's voice was steady now, clear and strong. You told me I'd never be a real Park because I wasn't Korean. You said my children would be contaminated by my blood. You threw away food I cooked because it wasn't proper Korean cuisine. You corrected my Korean in front of guests to humiliate me. You made sure every single person in this family knew I was an outsider who didn't belong. She looked at the woman who'd made her life hell. And when I got pregnant, when I came to you crying with joy that I was going to have Daniel's baby, you told me to abort it because you didn't want mixed grandchildren ruining the family bloodline. The room gasped collectively. Kai looked up at Maya with wide eyes, and she stroked his curls gently. I lost that baby, Maya continued, her voice breaking for the first time. I miscarried at 12 weeks, and you know what Daniel said? He said it was for the best, that we could try again after I learned to be a proper wife. That maybe the stress of trying to fit into a family that hated me had caused the miscarriage, so really, it was my fault for not adapting better. Jason made a sound low in his throat, dangerous and hurt. Kai was crying silently, and Maya picked him up even though he was getting too big to carry, held him close. So when you ask me why I came here tonight, Maya said, looking around at all of them, this family of beautiful monsters in their beautiful house with their beautiful lies, it's not for your apology. I don't want your apology. I don't need anything from you except for you to sit here and listen while I tell you exactly who you are and what you did. And then I'm going to walk out of here with my husband and my son and leave you all to rot in the legacy you built on cruelty and cowardice. Diokman's hands were shaking now. Jason, he said hoarsely, you knew about all of this. I knew, Jason said. I tried to stop it. I went to you, Abioji. I went to Mother. I told everyone that Daniel was abusing Maya, that the family was treating her terribly. And you all told me to mind my business. You said she was probably exaggerating, that Western women were dramatic, that I was being too soft. His voice hardened. So when Maya filed for divorce and you all paid her off to disappear quietly, I made a choice. I chose her over you. And I've never regretted it for a single second. You married your brother's ex-wife, my son spat. It's disgusting, it's betrayal. I fell in love with a woman who'd been freed from your son, Jason corrected. I waited until her divorce was final. I courted her properly. I asked her father for permission to marry her. I did everything with honor, something this family stopped understanding a long time ago. He looked at Maya with such tenderness that several people looked away. And then I married her and we built a life together. A real life. Not this, he gestured around the opulent dining room. Not this gilded cage where money covers up abuse and reputation matters more than human decency. Where have you been? Diokman asked. What have you been doing? Living, Jason said simply. I started my own company, consulting technology integration for shipping logistics, completely separate from Park Industries. Built it from nothing with money I earned myself. We live in New York. Maya has her own career. She's a senior art curator at one of the city's top galleries. Kai goes to an excellent school. We have friends who love us for who we are, not what we're worth. We have a life that matters. And now you come back here to what? Gloat. Daniel's voice was venomous. No, Maya said quietly. We came back because your father asked us to, because he said he wanted to make amends before he died. The word hung in the air like smoke. Diokman closed his eyes briefly. Lung cancer, the old man said. Stage 4, the doctors give me maybe a year less if I'm unlucky. He looked at Jason with something that might have been regret. I wanted to see you before I died, wanted to meet my great-grandson, wanted to, his voice cracked. I wanted to tell you I was wrong about everything, about forcing you to choose between family loyalty and doing what was right, about allowing Daniel to, he couldn't finish. You're dying, Jason said flatly, and now you want forgiveness. I want to try to deserve it, Diokman corrected. I know I can't undo what was done, but I can acknowledge it. I can make sure Maya is compensated properly for what she endured. I can make sure Kai is recognized as family, as heir. We don't want your money, Maya interrupted. We don't need it. Jason's company is doing extremely well. I have my own career. Kai has a trust fund from my parents. We're fine. Then what do you want? My son demanded. Why come here at all if not for money? Maya smiled, and it wasn't kind. I want you to sit through dinner with me. I want you to eat at the same table as the woman you called inferior. I want you to watch your son, your precious golden boy, get exposed for what he really is. And I want you to know that despite everything you did to break me, I'm happier than you'll ever be. That's what I want. Diokman stood slowly, his age suddenly visible in the way his hands gripped the table for support. The room watched in tense silence as the patriarch, who'd built an empire from shipping containers and political connections, looked at his youngest son with the expression of a man seeing a stranger. We will have dinner, he announced. All of us. Maya and Jason are my guests, my family, and they will be treated with the respect they were denied before. His eyes swept the table, landing on each family member with the weight of absolute authority. If anyone insults them, if anyone makes them uncomfortable in any way, they will leave my house and never return. Am I understood? Murmured assent rippled around the table. My son looked like she'd swallowed glass. One condition, Maya said, and every eye turned to her. She stood straighter, Kai still in her arms, Jason solid beside her. The moment anyone disrespects me or my son, we leave. No discussion. No second chances. We walk out and you'll never see any of us again. Agreed, Diokman said without hesitation. Jason nodded, and Maya set Kai down gently. The boy immediately grabbed her hand, his other hand reaching for Jason's. The three of them walked to the table as a unit, and Maya felt a savage satisfaction when people had to shift and rearrange to make room for them. She ended up seated directly across from Daniel, which was either cosmic irony or Diokman's deliberate choice. Jason sat beside her, Kai between them in a chair someone hastily brought from another room. The boy looked small among the adults, but his spine was straight, his chin up. He'd learned that posture from watching his mother survive. The kitchen staff, looking supremely uncomfortable with the tension, began bringing out courses. Banchan appeared first, small dishes of kimchi and pickled vegetables, seasoned spinach and braised tofu. Then came the main dishes, galbai jajim, the braised short ribs so tender they fell from the bone, a whole steamed fish with ginger and scallions, japchae with glass noodles that caught the light like silk, doenjang jjigae, the fermented soybean stew that filled the room with its pungent aroma. It was a feast designed to impress, to remind everyone of the Park family's wealth and status. Maya took a small portion of everything, showed Kai how to use his chopsticks properly, and ignored the stares. So, Diokman said after several minutes of awkward silence broken only by the click of chopsticks against porcelain, "Jason, tell me about this company you built." Jason finished chewing, took a sip of water, and answered with the calm professionalism that had made him successful. Park Global Logistics Consulting. We help mid-sized shipping companies optimize their routes and integrate new technology. Started with 3 employees 6 years ago. We're at 45 now, with offices in New York, Singapore, and as of last month, Hamburg. Competitors to Park Industries, my son said coldly. Different market segment entirely, Jason corrected. We work with companies too small for Park Industries to bother with. You operate in billions, we operate in millions, no conflict of interest. Yet you use the Park name, Daniel interjected, his voice tight. It's my name, Jason replied simply. I was born a Park. I didn't stop being one just because I chose integrity over inheritance, though I notice you haven't asked about the global part. That's Maya's contribution. She consulted on our international branding, helped us establish connections in the art world that led to shipping contracts for galleries and museums. Turns out people who move priceless art around the world need reliable logistics. Maya felt pride warm her chest. They'd built that company together, late nights and early mornings, Maya's art world connections and Jason's shipping expertise combining into something neither could have created alone. And you, Maya? Diokman asked, his tone carefully neutral. Jason said you're a curator. Senior curator at the Morrison Gallery in Manhattan, Maya confirmed. We specialize in contemporary art from underrepresented artists, African diaspora, Asian American, Latin American. I also consult for private collectors on authentication and acquisition. She took a sip of her water, met my son's eyes. I was doing this work before I met Daniel, continued during our marriage despite being told it was embarrassing for a Park wife to work, and built it into something significant after the divorce. My reputation in the art world is excellent. Funny how that works when you're actually good at your job instead of just riding a family name. The barb landed, my son's chopsticks clattered against her plate. How did you meet? Bibi asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. You and Jason, after the divorce. Maya glanced at Jason, saw the soft smile playing at his lips and felt her own expression mirror it. An art opening in New York. I was curating a show on Korean-American identity, textiles, ceramics, modern installations. Jason came because one of his business partners had a piece in the exhibition. I didn't know who she was at first, Jason added. I just saw this beautiful woman standing in front of a textile installation, completely absorbed. She was explaining to a patron how the artist had woven traditional Korean bajagi techniques with African kente cloth patterns to represent mixed heritage. The way she talked about the work, the passion, the expertise, I couldn't look away. I caught him staring, Maya said, the memory warming her despite the hostile room. Came over to give him the curator's pitch, and he immediately recognized my last name. I'd kept Park after the divorce because changing it back felt like letting you all win, like admitting I'd been erased. I told her I was Park Jason, Jason continued. She went completely white. I thought she might throw her wine at me. I considered it, Maya admitted. But instead she just said, "You're Daniel's brother, the one who tried to help me," because I had tried. During her marriage to Daniel, I'd gone to our father multiple times, told him what was happening. I'd argued with Mother about her treatment of Maya. I'd even confronted Daniel directly. Jason's voice hardened. But I was traveling a lot then for business, not in Seoul consistently. I didn't see the worst of it. And when I pushed too hard, Father threatened to cut me off if I didn't stop, interfering in Daniel's marriage. "So you chose money over doing the right thing," Maya said, but there was no heat in it. They'd had this conversation 100 times in the early days of their relationship, working through his guilt and her justified anger. "I did," Jason admitted, "for a while, and then Maya filed for divorce and I saw what this family did to silence her. The NDA, the settlement that was designed to humiliate, the whisper campaign that followed her back to New York. I saw Father and Mother and Daniel, close ranks, protect the family reputation at the cost of an innocent woman's life." He looked directly at Deokman. "That's when I understood that being a Park didn't mean what I thought it meant. It didn't mean honor or integrity or building something worthwhile. It meant protecting power at any cost, and I wanted no part of it." "So you left," Deokman said quietly. "So I left," Jason confirmed. "Walked away from the vice presidency, from the inheritance, from all of it. Started over with the money I'd saved myself, the connections I'd built on my own merit. And yes, I went to that art opening specifically because I'd heard through industry contacts that Maya was the curator, and I wanted to apologize. To tell her I was sorry for not doing more." "I didn't want his apology," Maya interjected. "I wanted him to leave me alone. I'd just escaped one Park brother. I wasn't interested in getting tangled up with another one." "She told me that very clearly," Jason said with a slight smile. "Said I could take my guilty conscience and Park family name and get out of her gallery." "But he kept coming back," Maya continued, "to different exhibitions, never approached me directly, just attended the openings, looked at the art, left generous donations to the gallery. It took me 3 months to realize he wasn't there to salve his guilt. He actually cared about the work." "I did," Jason said, "but I also cared about her. Watching her rebuild her life, create something meaningful from the ashes of what our family had destroyed, it was humbling, inspiring. I wanted to be part of that kind of integrity." "So you pursued her," my son's voice dripped with disgust, "while she was vulnerable, while she was recovering from divorce." "So I respected her boundaries," Jason corrected sharply. "For 8 months, I attended her exhibitions, I learned about the artists she championed. I built my own company and made sure our paths crossed professionally because shipping art is actually part of logistics. And then, after 8 months of careful, respectful distance, I asked if she'd have coffee with me. As colleagues, nothing more." "I said no," Maya said, "twice, but he was patient and he was genuine. He didn't push, didn't pressure, didn't use his family name or money to try to impress me. He just showed up consistently, honorably." She looked at Jason with open affection. "Eventually I said yes to coffee, then dinner, then a weekend trip to Boston for a gallery opening, and somewhere in there I realized he wasn't his brother, wasn't his family. He was just Jason, a good man trying to build a good life." "When did you tell him," Bibi asked gently, "about the baby you lost?" The table went very still. Maya felt Kai's small hand slip into hers under the table, and she squeezed it gently. 6 months into dating," Maya answered. "We were getting serious and I needed him to know everything, not just the abuse and the NDA and the financial manipulation, but the pregnancy, the miscarriage, what my son said about my contaminated blood, what Daniel said about it being for the best." Her voice caught, but she pushed through. "I needed to know if he could handle the full truth of what his family had done to me." "I was in my apartment in New York when she told me," Jason said, his voice rough with old pain. "I had to leave, went outside and walked for 3 hours because I was so angry I couldn't see straight. Angry at Daniel, at Mother, at Father, at myself for not protecting her better. When I came back, Maya thought I'd left for good, thought the truth had scared me away." "Instead he proposed," Maya said softly. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. My son looked like she might faint. "Proposed," Daniel's voice was strangled. "You'd been dating 6 months and you proposed." "I'd been in love with her for longer than that," Jason replied, "and I realized that night that I wanted to spend the rest of my life making sure she never felt that kind of pain again, making sure she knew she was valued, cherished, protected." He looked at Maya. She said no, by the way, said it was too fast, too reactionary, that I was proposing out of guilt or pity. So he waited, Maya continued. Another year, built his company, supported my career, met my family, my mother Patricia, my father, my brothers, learned to cook my favorite foods, studied Korean history and culture to understand his own heritage better, went to therapy to process his family trauma, and then on the 2-year anniversary of our first coffee date he proposed again, properly this time, with a ring and a speech and a promise that he'd spend every day earning my trust. And she said yes, Jason finished. We got married 6 months later, small ceremony in New York, just our close friends and Maya's family, no Parks invited, no drama, just 2 people choosing each other. And Kai, Diokman's voice was soft, almost reverent as he looked at the boy who was carefully eating his rice with chopsticks, occasionally stealing glances at the adults. Was born 3 years ago, Jason said, his hand moving to rest on his son's head, fingers gentle in the soft curls. We'd been married 3 years when Maya got pregnant. We were terrified and overjoyed in equal measure, scared because of what happened before but determined to do everything right this time. I was on bed rest for 4 months, Maya added. High-risk pregnancy because of the previous miscarriage and my age. Jason worked from home so he could take care of me, cooked every meal, handled all the household tasks, made sure I stayed calm and healthy. And when Kai was born, Jason's voice went thick with emotion, when the doctor placed him in my arms and I saw his face, saw Maya's eyes and my nose and this perfect blend of both of us, I knew I'd made the right choice. Walking away from this family, building a life based on love instead of obligation, choosing integrity over inheritance. All of it was worth it for that moment. Kai looked up at his father, smiled, and went back to his rice. The unself-conscious love in that simple exchange made several people look away. He's beautiful, Bibi said, and her eyes were wet. He looks like both of you, like he belongs to both worlds. He belongs to himself, Maya corrected gently. We're raising him to be proud of all of his heritage, Black, Korean, American. We speak English and Korean at home. We celebrate both Chuseok and Juneteenth. We make sure he knows his grandmother Patricia's family stories and we teach him about his Korean grandfather's ancestry. He gets to be whole, not halved. What does he know about us? My son asked, and for the first time her voice carried something other than hostility, fear maybe, or regret. He knows his father has a family and career that his parents don't speak to, Jason answered. He knows there was hurt in the past, but we haven't told him details. He's 6. When he's older, when he can process it, we'll tell him the full truth, but we won't lie to him. We won't pretend you're good people who simply had a misunderstanding with his parents. And yet you came here, Daniel said, his voice bitter. Brought your son to the house of people you clearly despise. Why? To humiliate us, to show off your perfect little family. We came, Maya said, her voice hardening, because your father is dying and asked to meet his great-grandson before he died. Because despite everything, Jason still has some small hope that his family might be capable of change. And because I wanted you all to see what you lost. She leaned forward, her eyes locked on Daniel's. I wanted you to see the woman you tried to destroy not just surviving but thriving. I wanted your mother to see the contaminated grandson who is smarter, kinder, and more loved than any pure-blooded Park child could ever be. I wanted your father to understand the cost of choosing reputation over human decency. And I wanted to give you a chance, Jason added, looking at Diokman. One chance to acknowledge what was done, to apologize to Maya properly, to welcome Kai into this family as the heir he legally is, whether you like it or not, because he carries Park blood and under Korean law that makes him family regardless of his mother's race. You want him acknowledged as heir. My son's voice went shrill again. You want this mixed child to inherit. Careful, Jason's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. That's my son you're talking about, and if the next words out of your mouth are anything other than respectful, we're leaving. My son's mouth snapped shut, but her expression remained venomous. Diokman was staring at Kai again, his weathered face unreadable. The boy, does he speak Korean? Kai looked up at his great-grandfather and without hesitation said in perfect Korean, Yes, Haraboji, Daddy teaches me. He says it's important to know where you come from, even if some of those people weren't very nice to Mommy. Someone at the table choked on their water. Diokman's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Your father is a wise man, Diokman said in Korean. What else does he teach you? How to be strong, Kai replied, still in Korean, his grammar flawless for a 6-year-old. How to protect people you love, how to be brave even when you're scared. His eyes, so much like Jason's, were steady on the old man. Are you really sick? I am, Diokman confirmed. Are you sorry for being mean to my mommy? The blunt question from a child silenced the room. Diokman looked at this small boy who carried his blood and his family's features, and apparently none of their cowardice. Yes, the old man said finally, I am very sorry. Then you should tell her, Kai said simply, not me, her. Diokman's eyes moved from his great-grandson to Maya, the black woman who'd married into his family and been destroyed by it, who'd rebuilt herself and married his eldest son, and created a life so far removed from the Parks that she didn't need their money or their name or their approval. Maya, Diokman said, and his voice cracked on her name. I am sorry for everything, for allowing my son to abuse you, for allowing my wife to torture you, for choosing the Park reputation over your safety and dignity, for paying you off instead of protecting you, for making you sign that NDA instead of holding my family accountable. He paused, took a shaking breath. I was wrong, completely, utterly wrong, and I don't expect your forgiveness, I just need you to know that I see it now. I see what we did to you, and I'm ashamed. The apology hung in the air like smoke. Maya stared at this dying man who'd once had all the power and had used it so poorly. Thank you, she said finally, for saying it, but you're right, I don't forgive you, I don't forgive any of you. She looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes. You took 18 months of my life and filled them with fear and pain and humiliation. You made me doubt myself, hate myself, question my worth. You took a pregnancy that should have been joyful and turned it into a tragedy because your daughter-in-law's racism convinced me that my baby would be better off not born into a family that would hate it for existing. My son flinched like she'd been hit. But Maya continued, I also don't hate you anymore, because hating you would mean you still had power over me. And you don't, you have nothing I want, nothing I need, you're just people who made bad choices, and I'm someone who survived them. She stood, and Jason and Kai stood with her automatically. Wait, Diokman said urgently. Please, I know you don't forgive me, I understand, but before you go there's something I need to tell you about Daniel. Maya remained standing but didn't move toward the door. Jason's hand found hers. Diokman looked at his youngest son with an expression of absolute devastation. Tell them, Daniel, tell them what you did, all of it, or I will. Daniel had gone grey, his hands resting on the table were trembling. Abioji, please. Tell them. The roar from the dying man made everyone jump. Diokman was on his feet now, breathing hard, one hand pressed to his chest. Bibi moved toward him, but he waved her off. You tell them what you did, Diokman repeated, quieter now but no less forceful. Or I will call the prosecutors right now and have you arrested at this table. Your choice. Daniel's face crumpled, and in that moment Maya saw something she'd never expected to see, genuine fear in her ex-husband's eyes. Not fear of her, fear of consequences finally catching up to him. I stole from the company, Daniel whispered, embezzled over 6 years, nearly 40 million won. The table erupted in chaos. The confession detonated like a bomb. Voices exploded across the table, family members shouting, demanding explanations, my son's shrill denials cutting through the chaos. But Maya stood perfectly still, watching Daniel's face as the man who'd destroyed her life finally began to crumble under the weight of his own sins. Silence, Diokman's voice cracked like thunder and the room went quiet instantly. The old man remained standing, one hand still pressed to his chest, his breathing labored but his eyes sharp as knives. Let him finish, all of it, Daniel, every crime, every lie. Daniel's hands were shaking so badly he had to clasp them together on the table. Sweat beaded at his temples, darkening the collar of his expensive shirt. The embezzlement started 8 years ago. Small amounts at first, money from accounts I thought wouldn't be audited carefully. But then I made bad investments, lost money gambling. I needed more to cover the losses, so I took more. How much more? Bibi's voice was clinical, the accountant already calculating damages. 40 million won was just the beginning, Daniel admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Over time, closer to 200 million. The number hit like a physical blow. Someone gasped. My son made a strangled sound of disbelief. 200 million won, Diokman repeated slowly, like he was testing the weight of the words. You stole 200 million won from your own family's company. And blamed it on Maya, Jason's voice cut through the shock like a blade. His hand tightened around Maya's, his body vibrating with barely controlled rage. "You were stealing from the company while you were married to her, and when the auditors started asking questions, you made her the scapegoat." "I didn't mean for it to go that far," Daniel said, and the pathetic justification made Maya's stomach turn. "I just needed them to look somewhere else." Maya had access to some of the accounts because she was helping with the foundation's charity work. "I thought if I suggested she might have made mistakes." "You accused your own wife of embezzlement to cover your crimes," Maya said, her voice flat and cold. "You let your family believe I was a thief. You made me sign an NDA saying I'd never defend myself against accusations I didn't even know existed. You destroyed my reputation in Seoul's business community, all to cover up your gambling debts and bad investments." "I'm sorry," Daniel whispered. "No, you're not," Maya replied. "You're sorry you got caught, there's a difference." Diokman lowered himself back into his chair heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 78 years. "What else?" Bibi said she had evidence of corporate espionage. "What did you sell, Daniel?" Daniel's face went even paler if that was possible. He looked like a man facing execution, which in a sense he was. The execution of everything he'd built his identity on, his position in the family, his reputation, his future. "Shipping routes," he finally said. "Client lists, proprietary logistics software we'd developed. I sold it all to Park Industries' competitors." The room erupted again. This time Diokman didn't call for silence, just sat there absorbing the magnitude of his son's betrayal with an expression of such profound disappointment that even Maya felt a flicker of sympathy for the old man. "Who did you sell to?" Jason demanded. "Which competitors?" Dehan Shipping, Global Maritime Solutions, 3 smaller companies in Southeast Asia. Daniel was barely audible now. "I made contact through encrypted channels, set up shell companies to receive the payments. Over 4 years, I made nearly 500 million won selling Park Industries' proprietary information." 700 million won total, Bibi said, her voice eerily calm as she did the math. "You stole and sold 700 million won worth of money and information. And you're still here, still working for the company, still living in the family compound like nothing happened." "Because I didn't know," Diokman said, and his voice was hollow. "I knew about some missing money 3 years ago. Daniel convinced me it was accounting errors that he was investigating. The old man's voice broke. He even suggested Maya might have taken some money before the divorce, said he'd been too embarrassed to pursue it legally, but maybe that's why she'd signed the NDA so quickly. Made me believe she'd stolen from us and gotten away with it because we'd been too kind to prosecute." Maya felt Jason's entire body go rigid beside her. Kai, who'd been silent through the revelations, pressed closer to his mother's leg. "So you let your son frame your daughter-in-law for his crimes," Jason said with deadly quiet. "You believed him instead of investigating properly, and Maya left Korea with everyone thinking she was a thief and a gold digger, while Daniel stayed here living off stolen money." "I didn't know," Diokman repeated, but the words sounded like ashes. "Bibi only brought me the full evidence 2 weeks ago. That's when I understood what had really happened." He looked at Maya with red-rimmed eyes. "That's why I called you, why I asked you to come. I needed to face you, needed to tell you the truth before I died." "How did you find it all?" Jason asked Bibi. "The evidence, the transactions, all of it." Bibi pulled out another folder from her bag, this one even thicker than the first. "I've been the family accountant for 20 years. I watch the books more carefully than anyone realizes. 3 years ago I noticed discrepancies. Small ones at first, but they followed patterns. Money moving in ways that didn't match legitimate business expenses. When Daniel blamed Maya, something about it didn't sit right with me." She looked at Maya with something like apology in her eyes. "I knew you. Not well, but enough to know you were meticulous with the foundation accounts. You caught errors, not made them, so I started digging." "For 3 years," Maya's voice carried disbelief. "For 3 years," Bibi confirmed, "because Daniel was careful. He'd been stealing for so long he'd gotten good at hiding it. Shell companies registered in different countries, cryptocurrency transactions, money laundered through real estate investments, but he made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes eventually." She opened the folder, revealing bank statements, transfer records, emails, screenshots. "I tracked every transaction, identified every shell company. Found the communications with the competitors, and then I waited." "Waited for what?" my son demanded, her voice shrill with panic now. Her precious son, her golden boy, was being revealed as a criminal and a fraud, and the reality was crashing down around her. For the right moment, Bibi said simply. Calling him out privately would have resulted in family pressure to cover it up, to protect the Park name, to quietly remove Daniel and sweep everything under the rug. But this, she gestured around the table at the gathered family, at Maya and Jason and Kai. This is public. This is undeniable. This is justice. You planned this, Jason said, understanding dawning. You told father to invite Maya. You knew we'd come because of his cancer. You set this whole dinner up as a stage for the truth. I gave your father the evidence 2 weeks ago and told him he had a choice, Bibi corrected. Face it honestly and invite Maya to receive a proper apology, or I'd take everything to the prosecutors myself. He chose honesty. I chose the timing. Diokman nodded slowly, confirming it. She was right. The family would have tried to protect Daniel, to minimize the damage. But bringing you here, Maya, forcing everyone to face what was done to you, it makes covering up impossible. You're the evidence that we can't ignore. You and Kai and Jason, and the life you built from the ashes of what we destroyed. And the necklace, Maya asked, looking at the jewelry box still sitting in front of my son. That was part of this too. That was personal, Bibi said. My son's diamond necklace disappeared 8 years ago, right around the time Maya and Daniel were having the most problems. My son immediately assumed Maya stole it, made a police report, had investigators search Maya's belongings. It became the final proof that Maya was a thief, that she'd married Daniel for money and was stealing from the family. But I didn't take it, Maya said unnecessarily. Everyone knew now. Daniel took it, Bibi confirmed. Sold it to a private collector in Busan for 20 million won. Used the money to cover gambling debts. I found the transaction records 2 years ago, tracked down the collector and bought it back for 30 million won. My own money, she added. Not family funds. I wanted to return it personally when the time was right. My son was staring at the necklace like it was cursed. My son stole from me, my own son, and let me blame. She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't say Maya's name. Let you blame the black woman you already hated, Maya finished for her. The foreign daughter-in-law who'd never be good enough, who you'd already decided was inferior. It was easy, wasn't it? Easy to believe I was a thief because you'd already decided I was unworthy of being a Park. My son's face crumpled, but Maya felt no satisfaction in it, just tired recognition of a truth they'd both always known. Why? Diokman's question was addressed to Daniel, his voice breaking with genuine incomprehension. Why steal from your own family? You had everything, position, wealth, respect. I had expectations, Daniel interrupted, and for the first time there was something other than fear in his voice, bitterness, resentment. I had the weight of being the second son, the one who wasn't as smart as Jason, who wasn't as naturally talented, who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. I had a mother who compared me to my brother constantly, and a father who made it clear I'd never measure up. So you became a criminal and an abuser, Jason said flatly. That's your excuse. You were insecure, so you stole millions and beat your wife. I never, Daniel started. You hit her, Jason's voice was deadly quiet. 3 times that we know of, probably more that she didn't tell me about because she was protecting you, trying to make the marriage work despite everything. Don't you dare sit there and deny it now. Daniel's mouth worked but no sound came out. And the baby, Maya said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tears now flowing freely down her face. Tell them about the baby, Daniel. Tell them what you said when I lost our child. Maya, please. Tell them, her voice cracked like a whip, and Kai wrapped his arms around her leg, silent tears streaming down his own face even though he didn't fully understand what was happening. Daniel's composure shattered completely. I said it was for the best, he whispered. I said we could try again after you learned to be a better wife, after you stopped being so difficult, after you adapted better to our family's expectations. I said, his voice broke. I said maybe the stress of trying to fit in had caused the miscarriage, so it was partially your fault for not trying harder. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the people who'd been defending Daniel, making excuses, looked at him now with undisguised horror. My son's face had gone white as paper. You said that to your wife after she lost your child. And I told her to abort the baby before the miscarriage, Daniel continued, the words pouring out now like poison from a wound. Told her we should wait, that I wasn't ready, that having a mixed-race child would complicate our position in the family. I didn't want. He looked at Kai, at this beautiful child who existed because Jason had wanted him, had cherished him, had chosen to create a life with Maya built on love instead of shame. I didn't want a child who would be different, who wouldn't be fully Korean, who would make people ask questions. Kai buried his face against Maya's leg, and she picked him up even though her arms were shaking, held him close and whispered comfort in English and Korean, while her heart broke all over again for the baby she'd lost, and the family that had made her feel like that loss was her fault. Jason moved to stand beside her, wrapped his arms around both of them, created a shelter with his body, and when he spoke, his voice was so cold it could have frozen blood. "You don't deserve to breathe the same air as my wife and son," he said to Daniel. "You don't deserve to live in this house, work for this company, or carry the park name, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you are." "The prosecutors are already being notified," Bibi said calmly, pulling out her phone. "I have a contact at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office. With this much evidence and this many witnesses to his confession, they'll issue an arrest warrant within 48 hours. "You're having him arrested," my son's voice was panicked now. "He's your nephew, your family." "He's a criminal," Bibi corrected. "And unlike the rest of you, I don't believe family loyalty means protecting criminals. It means holding them accountable so they don't hurt more people." "This will destroy the park reputation," someone said from the end of the table, one of the uncles or cousins, Maya couldn't tell which. "Good," Jason said simply. "Maybe it should be destroyed. Maybe a reputation built on covering up abuse and theft and fraud isn't worth protecting." Diokman sat silent through all of it, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I failed," he finally said. "I failed as a father, as a grandfather, as a man. I built an empire and raised monsters." He looked at Jason. "You were the only one who was worth anything, and I drove you away for having integrity. I kept the son who had none." "You kept the son who told you what you wanted to hear," Jason corrected. Daniel learned early that truth didn't matter in this family, only appearance, only reputation, only maintaining the park name no matter the cost. "You taught him that, you all taught him that." He looked around at the gathered family. "And now you're reaping what you sowed." Maya took a shuddering breath, set Kai down gently and wiped her eyes. She'd cried enough in this house during her marriage. She wouldn't cry anymore, wouldn't give them any more of her pain. "I need to say something," she announced, and her voice carried across the silent room with the authority of someone who'd finally, completely, stopped caring what any of these people thought. "And then we're leaving, and you'll never see us again unless we decide otherwise." She walked to the center of the room, where everyone could see her clearly, where the light from that crystal chandelier caught the gold in her jewelry and made her skin glow like warm honey. "I came here tonight believing I wanted your apologies," Maya began. "I thought hearing you say you were sorry, watching you face consequences, would heal something in me, would close a wound that's been open for 6 years. She paused, looked around at all of them. "But I was wrong. Your apologies don't heal me. Your suffering doesn't vindicate me. None of this gives me back the 18 months you stole, or the baby I lost, or the years I spent hatting myself because you convinced me I was the problem." Maya, Diokman started. "I'm not finished," she said quietly, and he fell silent. "I don't forgive you. Not you, Diokman, for choosing reputation over protecting me. Not you, my son, for torturing me every single day because my skin was darker than yours and my culture was different, and I didn't fit your narrow definition of what a park wife should be. Not you, Daniel, for anything. You're beyond forgiveness, beyond redemption. You're just a coward who should face every legal consequence coming your way." She took a breath, steadied herself. "But I also don't hate you anymore, because I realized something while sitting at this table, watching all of you squirm and make excuses and try to minimize what you did. You're not powerful. You're not formidable. You're just sad, small people who mistake cruelty for strength and money for worth. And I'm better than you," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "Not because of my career or my marriage to Jason or my beautiful son. I'm better than you because when I was destroyed, I chose to rebuild with integrity. When I was given money to disappear quietly, I used it to start over honestly. When I was told I was worthless, I proved my worth through my own merit, not inherited wealth." She looked at my son. "You told me my children would contaminate the Park bloodline, but Kai is smarter, kinder, and more empathetic than any pure-blooded Park in this room. He's being raised to value people's character over their pedigree, to respect all cultures instead of believing one is superior, to use his privileges to lift others up instead of keeping them down." Then to Diokman, You told me I should have provoked Daniel less, been more submissive, more accommodating. But I was never the problem. Your son's violence was his choice. Your family's racism was your choice. Your decision to protect your reputation instead of an innocent woman was your choice. And you have to live with those choices for whatever time you have left. And finally to Daniel, you tried to erase me, make me disappear, convince everyone I was a liar and a thief and a gold digger, but I'm still here, still standing, still successful, still loved. And you, she smiled, sharp as broken glass, you're about to lose everything. Your position, your freedom, your family's respect. And unlike me, you won't rebuild, because you don't have the strength, the integrity, or the courage to face the consequences of your own actions and become something better. Maya walked back to where Jason and Kai stood waiting. So here's what I want you all to understand. I don't forgive you, but I thank you. Thank you for showing me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Thank you for pushing me away from this toxic family so I could build a real one with people who actually know how to love. Thank you for making my life so miserable that leaving you behind was easy. She took Jason's hand, picked up Kai, and looked at them all one last time. Goodbye, Park family. I hope you learn something from this, but I won't be around to see if you do. And then Maya turned and walked toward the door, her husband beside her, her son in her arms, leaving behind the family that had tried to break her, and discovering that their power over her life had finally, completely ended. They were almost to the door when Diokman's voice stopped them. Wait, please. Maya paused but didn't turn around. Jason's hand tightened on hers, Kai's arms locked around her neck. Please, the old man repeated, and there was something in his voice, something broken and desperate, that made Maya finally turn to face him. Diokman had stood again, leaning heavily on the table for support. His face was grey, his breathing laboured, and Maya wondered distantly if the stress of tonight would kill him before the cancer did. I know you don't forgive me, he said, each word seeming to cost him. I know I don't deserve it, but before you go, before I never see you again, I need to do one thing right. He looked at Jason. The company, Park Industries, I'm making you the primary heir, majority shareholder, CEO when I die. Everything I built, it should have been yours anyway. You were always the better son, the better man. The room erupted in shocked protests. My son's voice rose above them all. You can't, Daniel is. Daniel is going to prison, Diokman interrupted, his voice like steel despite his physical weakness. And even if he wasn't, I wouldn't leave him a single one. He's stolen enough from this family, from this company, from everyone. He turned back to Jason. It's yours, all of it. The business, the estate, the investments. You'll have the power to rebuild this family's reputation into something worth having, to make the Park name mean integrity instead of corruption. Jason was very still beside Maya. She could feel the tension radiating from his body, could sense the war happening inside him. This was everything he'd walked away from 6 years ago, everything he'd rejected in favor of building something on his own merit. No, Jason said quietly. The room went silent. No, Diokman's voice carried disbelief. You're refusing. I'm refusing, Jason confirmed. I don't want Park Industries, I don't want the estate, I don't want the inheritance, I already have everything I need. He looked at Maya, at Kai, and his expression softened in a way it never did when he looked at his birth family. I have a company I built with my own hands. I have a wife who chose me, not my family name or money. I have a son I'm raising to value people over profit. I have a life that means something beyond quarterly earnings and social status. But the company, Diokman started, will be fine without me, Jason interrupted. Give it to Bibi. She's the only one in this family with actual integrity. She's been cleaning up after Daniel for 3 years without anyone's permission or gratitude. She deserves to lead Park Industries into whatever comes next. Bibi's eyes went wide. Jason, I can't. You can, Jason said firmly. You're the smartest person in this family. You've been holding the company together while everyone else played politics and covered up scandals. You found the evidence that exposed Daniel. You orchestrated this entire intervention. If anyone can rebuild the Park reputation into something honorable, it's you. Diokman looked at his sister, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time seeing her as something other than the quiet accountant in the background. Bibi. Bibi seemed to be calculating 1,000 variables at once. I would need complete authority. No interference from family members who think their last name entitles them to override business decisions. Done, Diokman said immediately. And I'd want to restructure, Bibi continued, her voice growing stronger as she processed the possibility. Clean house of anyone involved in corruption or covering up Daniel's crimes. Implement transparent accounting practices. Establish an ethics board with external oversight. Make Park Industries a company people can actually be proud to work for. Whatever you need, Diokman agreed. I'll sign everything over to you before I die. You'll have my full support. Then I'll consider it, Bibi said. She looked at Jason. But only if you agree to be on the advisory board. I don't need you running the company, but I need your perspective, your integrity, someone I can trust to tell me when I'm compromising my values for profit. Jason glanced at Maya. She could see the question in his eyes. Can we do this? Can we have any connection to this family without being pulled back into toxicity? Advisory board only, Maya said to Bibi. Quarterly meetings, video conference, no regular travel to Seoul. And the first time anyone in this family disrespects Jason or our son, he walks away and never comes back. Non-negotiable. Agreed, Bibi said immediately. Jason nodded slowly. Then yes, I'll advise, but I won't run the company. That life, the life of being a Park Industries executive, it's not mine anymore, I don't want it. Diokman's face crumpled with something that might have been pride or regret or both. You're a better man than I ever was. I know, Jason said simply, not cruel, just honest. I learned early what kind of man I didn't want to be. You taught me that, even if you didn't mean to. Maya shifted Kai in her arms. We're leaving now, for real this time. Wait, my son's voice was small, broken. She stood on shaking legs looking at Kai with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. The child, my grandson, can I see him sometimes? The audacity of the request stole Maya's breath. No, she said flatly. Please, my son whispered. I know I was terrible to you, I know I said unforgivable things, but he's my blood, he's family. He's my son, Maya interrupted, her voice like ice. And I will never ever let you anywhere near him. You told me to abort him when I was pregnant with Daniel's baby. You called my potential children contaminated. You said my black blood would ruin the Park lineage. You think I'd let you near Kai after that? You think I'd risk you saying those things to him, making him feel like he's less than because of who his mother is? I was wrong, my son said, tears streaming down her face now. I was so wrong, I let my prejudice and pride poison everything, but I could change, I could learn. You had 18 months to learn, Maya said. 18 months to treat me like a human being. You chose cruelty every single time. You don't get access to my son because you're suddenly scared of dying alone and realizing you've alienated everyone who could have loved you. My son collapsed back into her chair, sobbing, and Maya felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just the cold certainty that she was making the right choice. However, Maya said, and watched hope flicker in several faces, Diokman can see Kai. Supervised visits in New York on our terms. If he wants to know his great-grandson before he dies, we'll allow that. Because unlike the rest of you, he at least had the courage to acknowledge his mistakes and try to make amends. Diokman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, I don't deserve your mercy. You don't, Maya agreed, but Kai deserves to know where he comes from, the good and the bad, and maybe you can tell him stories about his grandfather, the man Jason could have become if he'd stayed here, the warning and the lesson in one. Jason squeezed her hand gratefully. This was the compromise he'd wanted but hadn't dared ask for, some small connection to the family that created him, some acknowledgement that not everything about the Parks was poison. We'll set up the first visit in a month, Jason said to his father. Video call first, then if that goes well you can come to New York, stay in a hotel, not our home, spend time with Kai in public places with both of us present, and the first time you make him feel bad about himself or his heritage it's over. Understood? Understood, Diokman said. Thank you, both of you, for giving me a chance I don't deserve. Maya looked at the rest of the family, the aunts and uncles and cousins who'd watched her be abused and said nothing, who'd believed lies about her without question, who'd valued maintaining appearances over protecting an innocent woman. The rest of you are nothing to me, she said clearly. Not family, not friends, nothing. If I see you on the street, I'll walk past you like strangers. If you try to contact Kai, I'll have you blocked and reported for harassment. You had your chance to be decent human beings and you failed. You don't get another one. No one argued. Several people looked down at their plates, shame-faced. A few looked angry but said nothing. Daniel sat slumped in his chair, barely conscious of what was happening around him, already rehearsing the confession he'd have to give to prosecutors. "Maya," Bibi said suddenly, "I know I don't deserve to ask, but I have something for you. Can you wait just one more minute?" Maya wanted to say no, wanted to leave and never look back, but something in Bibi's expression made her nod. Bibi disappeared into another room and returned carrying a small box wrapped in traditional Korean bajagi cloth, the kind used for precious gifts. She handed it to Maya with both hands, the gesture respectful, almost reverent. "What is this?" Maya asked. "Open it when you get home," Bibi said. "It's yours, it was always yours, I just didn't know how to give it to you until now." Maya took the box, felt its weight in her hands, light but significant. "Thank you." "No," Bibi said. "Thank you for surviving us, for showing me that integrity matters more than family loyalty, for being brave enough to come back here and face your demons. You're remarkable, Maya. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She'd had enough of this house, this family, this night that had reopened wounds she'd spent 6 years healing. "We're leaving now," she announced. "Kai needs sleep, we have an early flight back to New York tomorrow." "You're not staying in Seoul?" Deokman asked. "God, no," Jason said. "We're staying at a hotel near the airport. We'll be on a plane back home by noon tomorrow. This city, this country, it has too many bad memories for Maya. We're only here because you asked us to come. Now that we've done what we came to do, we're leaving." They walked to the door together, the three of them, and this time no one stopped them. Maya could feel eyes on her back, judgment, regret, curiosity, maybe even respect from a few, but she didn't turn around, didn't give them one last look, just kept walking forward toward the door, toward freedom, toward the life that was waiting for them back home. The night air hit them like a blessing when they stepped outside. Cool and clean, free of the oppressive weight of the Park family's expectations and cruelty. Their car was waiting, a simple rental, not the luxury vehicles the Parks would have offered, and Jason helped Maya settle Kai into his car seat while she buckled herself in. As they pulled away from the estate, Maya looked back one time, saw the massive house with its traditional architecture and modern luxury, the manicured gardens and imported marble, saw the prison that had held her for 18 months, the place where she'd learned what she was worth to people who valued blood over character. And then she turned forward, looked at Jason driving with one hand on the wheel and one hand reaching back to hold hers, looked at Kai sleeping peacefully in his car seat, and felt the last chains fall away. "You okay?" Jason asked softly. "Yeah," Maya said and realized she meant it. "Yeah, I am. I thought facing them would break me open again, but it didn't. It just closed something, finished it." "Your speech was incredible," Jason said. "The way you told them exactly who they are, what they did, and that you're better than all of them. I've never been more proud to be your husband." Maya smiled, squeezed his hand. "You really turned down billions of one." "I turned down a prison sentence disguised as inheritance," Jason corrected. "That company, that money, that family, it comes with chains, expectations, the requirement to compromise your integrity every single day to maintain an image that means nothing. I don't want that for us, for Kai." "What you built is better," Maya agreed. "What we built together, it's smaller but it's ours, it's clean." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, Seoul's lights blaring past the windows. Finally, Maya remembered the box Bibi had given her. "Should I open it now or wait until we're home?" she asked. "Now," Kai mumbled sleepily from the back seat. "I wanna see." Maya smiled and carefully unwrapped the bajagi cloth. Inside was a simple wooden box worn with age. She opened it and gasped. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, pictures of Maya during her marriage to Daniel, some she'd never seen before, her at charity events looking beautiful but haunted, her working at the foundation office focused and professional, her at family dinners trying so hard to fit in. But there were also other things. Copies of her work from the foundation, reports she'd written, proposals she'd developed, budgets she'd managed, all meticulously organized and preserved, letters of recommendation from foundation partners praising her work, dated during her marriage but never given to her, documentation of every charitable project she'd led, every success she'd achieved that the Park family had dismissed as insignificant. "She kept my work," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Bibi kept evidence of everything I did, everything I accomplished, while they were all telling me I was worthless." At the bottom of the box was a letter in Bibi's handwriting. "Maya, I watched them destroy you and I said nothing. I saw your intelligence, your compassion, your tireless work for the foundation, and I let my family convince themselves you were lazy and incompetent. I knew about the abuse and I stayed silent because confronting it would have disrupted the family peace. I was a coward, just like the rest of them. But I kept this box. I kept evidence of who you really were, what you really accomplished, because some part of me knew that one day the truth would matter, that one day you'd need proof that you weren't the person they said you were. You didn't need this proof. You knew your worth even when we tried to convince you otherwise. But maybe having it will help close a wound. Maybe seeing your own work documented and preserved will remind you that those 18 months weren't wasted. You built things that mattered. You helped people. You made a difference, even in a place that tried to erase you. I'm sorry I didn't fight for you then. I'm fighting now. For you, for Jason, for Kai, for every person this family has hurt by choosing reputation over humanity. You deserved better than the Parks. I hope you found it. A baby. Maya closed the letter carefully and placed it back in the box. Jason glanced over, saw her tears and reached for her hand again. Good tears or bad tears? He asked. Healing tears, Maya said. Bibi gave me proof that I mattered, that my work mattered, that I wasn't crazy or difficult or worthless. She gave me validation I didn't know I needed. You always mattered, Jason said fiercely, with or without documentation. I know, Maya agreed, but it's nice to have evidence anyway. Kai was fully awake now, looking at the photographs with curious eyes. Is that you, Mommy? You look so sad. I was sad, baby, Maya admitted. I was in a place that wasn't good for me with people who weren't kind, but I got out. I found Daddy and then we found you and now I'm happy. Are we going home now? Kai asked. Tomorrow, Jason promised. Tomorrow we fly home to New York, to our apartment, our friends, our life. This was just closure, a way to finish something that's been unfinished for too long. They arrived at their hotel, a nice but not extravagant place near Incheon Airport, and Jason carried a sleepy Kai inside, while Maya held the box from Bibi and her purse. Their room was on the 20th floor, with a view of Seoul's skyline glittering in the distance. After they put Kai to bed in the adjoining room, Maya and Jason stood at the window looking out at the city that had been so cruel to her. I used to dream about coming back here, Maya admitted quietly. About standing up to them, telling them off, making them see what they'd done to me. And tonight I did it. I said everything I needed to say, but I don't feel victorious, I just feel free, Jason finished for her. Yeah, Maya agreed, free, like I finally put down a weight I've been carrying for 6 years. Jason wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. You're the strongest person I've ever known. The way you stood there and faced them all, the way you told your truth without apologizing or minimizing it, the way you protected Kai while still showing mercy to my father, you're extraordinary. We're extraordinary, Maya corrected. You stood up to your family 6 years ago when it would have been easier to stay silent. You chose me over billions of one. You built a company from nothing and raised a son to be kind in a world that often rewards cruelty. We're extraordinary together. Together, Jason echoed and turned her to face him, always together. He kissed her then, soft and reverent, and Maya felt the last pieces of her past click into place. She'd survived the Parks. She'd rebuilt herself. She'd found real love, real family, real worth, and nothing they'd done to her could take that away. The next morning, they were on a plane back to New York, before the Seoul news outlets got hold of the story about Daniel Park's arrest. Before the business channels started reporting on the shocking leadership change at Park Industries. Before the society pages began whispering about the black American ex-daughter-in-law who'd come back to expose the family's darkest secrets. By the time the story broke, Maya was already home. Already back to her life, curating art and raising her son, and building a future with a man who chose her every single day. The Park family scandal dominated Korean news for weeks. Daniel was formally charged with embezzlement, corporate espionage and fraud. The prosecution threw the book at him, using Bibi's meticulously documented evidence to build an airtight case. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to repay everyone he'd stolen, plus damages. My son became a recluse, couldn't face Seoul society after her golden son's spectacular fall from grace. Several cousins and uncles who'd been complicit in covering up Daniel's crimes were quietly removed from Park Industries' leadership positions. Bibi became CEO and began the painstaking work of rebuilding the company's reputation through transparency and ethical business practices. She called Jason every quarter without fail, asked his advice on difficult decisions, and never once tried to manipulate him into coming back to Seoul permanently. And Deokman, true to the agreement, flew to New York 1 month after that dinner, met Kai in Central Park on a sunny afternoon with Maya and Jason present, and spent 2 hours telling his great-grandson stories about Korean history, about the shipping industry, about Jason's childhood. He didn't make excuses for the family's behavior, didn't try to minimize what had been done, just built a tentative relationship with a boy who carried his blood and none of his mistakes. He died 6 months later peacefully in a Seoul hospital with Bibi holding his hand. His last words, according to Bibi, were, "Tell Jason I'm proud of him, tell Maya I'm sorry, tell Kai to be better than we were." Maya cried when she heard, not for Deokman exactly, but for the man he could have been if he'd chosen differently earlier, when his choices still had the power to prevent so much pain. But mostly Maya didn't think about the Parks anymore. They'd become what they should have always been, a closed chapter, a lesson learned, a reminder of her own strength. Instead, she thought about the gallery opening she was planning for next month, about Kai's upcoming 7th birthday party, about the vacation she and Jason were planning to garner so Kai could connect with his maternal heritage the way he'd connected with his paternal heritage in Korea. She thought about her mother Patricia, healthy now after 5 years cancer-free, who told her after hearing about the Seoul trip, "Baby, you didn't just survive those people, you won, you built a life so good they can't even imagine it, that's the best revenge." And Maya thought about the night before when Kai had asked her, "Mommy, what does it mean to be strong?" She'd thought about all the definitions she could give: physical strength, emotional resilience, the ability to endure hardship. But in the end, she'd said, being strong means knowing your worth even when people try to convince you you're worthless. It means choosing to heal instead of staying broken. It means building something beautiful from painful materials. And it means teaching the people you love that they're worthy too. Kai had nodded seriously, processed it with his 6-year-old wisdom, and then asked, "Am I strong, Mommy?" "The strongest," Maya had promised, "because you're loved exactly as you are, and that love makes you invincible." Now, standing in her Manhattan apartment, with sunlight streaming through windows and the sounds of the city humming below, Maya looked at the box Bibi had given her. All that documentation of her worth during the hardest time of her life. She didn't need it anymore. She knew who she was, knew what she'd survived, knew what she'd built. But she kept it anyway, put it on a shelf in her study, right next to photographs of her and Jason's wedding, Kai's baby pictures, and her mother's strength. Evidence of the journey, proof that she'd always been enough, even when they tried to convince her otherwise. And on the nights when doubt crept in, when the old wounds ached, when she wondered if she'd really healed, she could look at that box and remember. She hadn't just survived the Parks. She'd transcended them entirely. If this story made you feel something, if Maya's courage, Jason's integrity, or Kai's innocence reminded you that you're more than what others say you are, leave a comment below. Tell me which moment hit you hardest. Share this video with someone who needs to know they can survive their own Park family and build something beautiful on the other side. And subscribe, because there are more stories like this one. Stories about people who refuse to let their worst moments define them. Stories about choosing healing over hatred, integrity over inheritance, and love over legacy. You are not what they did to you. You are what you chose to become after.